Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Nestori. Tonight I'm reading chapters 7 and 8. So open up to page 44. The vocabulary for this chapter is precarious, which is an adjective, and it means uncertain, unsettled, or a little rocky. What seemed like a good idea suddenly felt very precarious. India felt as if she'd only been asleep for a few minutes when the house rang with alarm clocks and she woke on the floor beside Boo. This sometimes happened when she worried about him. She never remembered going there, just waking up beside him. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Fantastic," Boo said. The wheezing was there, lurking behind every word he said. We don't have to go if you're not up to it." Boo threw off his blankets. "No offense, India, but it took a lot of work to get you here. There's no way I'm letting you back out now. Plus, I feel fine, like I said." India scowled. "You're a terrible liar." "No, I'm not. I'm brave Boo, who fights merciless monsters and is about to escort his preposterously smart sister into one of the most tremendous moments of her life. As long as I don't pass out or throw up." "You won't," Boo said with a grin. "You'll be fine." "As your little brother, I know." The house filled with the chaos of getting ready and last-minute spelling drills over breakfast. Mom made sandwiches and packed drinks for the trip, while Dad sang in the shower at the top of his voice. He was happy, happier than he'd been in a long time. The rest of the house would have been happier if Dad were a better singer. When they all were ready, they scrambled out the door, but something was missing, or someone. "Where's Nana Flo?" Dad looked at his watch. "In her bedroom," Mom said. "She needed a few more minutes to get ready." "Ready?" Dad's face reddened, which also happened when he got nervous. "All she has to do is put in her teeth and she's done." "How long does that take?" Nana finally appeared at the door. "She's got Ernie," Mom sighed as Nana hobbled towards them. "The van's pretty crowded," Dad said, as gently as he could. "Do you think we really need to bring Ernie along?" "Of course we do. Who will protect me if I leave him behind?" Sometimes Nana Flo said things that didn't make much sense. This was one of those times. Nana squished into the back seat next to India. She sat Ernie on her lap and clicked the seatbelt around them both. "If we don't leave now, we're going to be late," she scolded Dad. "Yes, Ma." After a few choked rumbles, the van finally kicked to life. "Ready, Team Wimple?" Dad called over his shoulder. "Ready," the Wimples cried. Dad shifted the van into gear, and with a noisy sputter, they were on their way. "And we're off," Dad said. "On the road to India's championship run." "Honey, no one could mistake the warning tone in Mom's voice." "You said you wouldn't be too..." "I know, I'm sorry," Dad apologized. "We can't get our hopes up too much. It's going to be a tough competition." He paused before adding, "But I can't help it if our daughter was born to spell." Dad knew from Mom's expression that he'd said the wrong thing again. "I think what your father means," Mom poked her head between the seats, "is that we're proud of you, India, no matter what happens." "Of course, that's exactly what I meant." Dad looked into the rearview mirror and gave India a wink. "Thanks, Dad, but thousands of kids will be trying to get through this first round. What are the chances of me being one of them?" "Pretty good, I'd say, or you can sprinkle me with pepper and roast me for dinner," Nana Flo said. "In fact, someone ought to tell those kids they're wasting their time because India Wimple is coming." Mom sighed. The van backfired, and Nana Flo cuddled Ernie into her lap. The first round of the spelling bee was held in a small town called Dunedin, over an hour's drive away. When Dad pulled the van into the parking lot of the town hall, the area was alive with nervous kids and their parents. The Wimples piled out, and Dad took a deep, ready-for-battle breath. "Here we are, the first round. How do you feel, India?" When India didn't reply, the Wimples looked around and realized that, well, she was gone. "India," Dad scanned the parking lot. But it was Boo who spotted her first. I think she's over there. A pair of red sneakers was poking out from behind a dumpster. The Wimples crept toward the container and found India sitting on the ground. Her auburn hair looked even darker against her deathly white face. "Are you okay?" Dad asked. "I thought I'd sit for a while." "Yeah," Dad nodded to the others. "Good idea." The Wimples sat down on the ground beside her. Dad held her hand. "You don't have to do this. If you decide to walk away now, no one will think any less of you." Dad's voice made her feel calmer. "I'm okay." And she almost meant it. "The important thing is not to be scared," Dad said, even though he sounded a little scared too. It's true, Nana Flo was doing the same thing, where she was looking at India, but was mostly talking to Dad, especially when you've got family who do anything for you. She turned up her nose. "Even sit next to a dumpster that smells like the back end of a cow." India smiled for the first time that morning, but she still didn't move, so they sat some more. "While we're breathing in this beautiful aroma, I might as well tell a story," Nana Flo said. "When I was young, I sang at all the weddings in Yungabilla and at church on Sundays. Everyone said I had the voice of an angel. One time after Mass, a man showed me his card and invited me to audition for the Sydney Opera Company." "You never told me you sang at the Sydney Opera House," Dad said. "I didn't tell you," Nana Flo said sheepishly, "because I didn't go." "Why not?" India asked. "I was too scared. I thought I wouldn't be good enough, and now I'm an old lady and I've never even been inside the opera house," she sighed. "There's still a little part of me, all these years later, that wonders what would have happened if I'd gone." "I bet you would have been great," India said. "Yes, but we'll never know." India took a deep breath. "I'm still kind of scared." "It's only natural," Nana Flo said. "All the great moments in life are worth a couple of nerves. So what do you think? We keep sitting with the garbage or go inside?" "Let's go inside." "I was hoping you'd say that," Nana Flo sniffed, "because I was about to pass out from the STINK. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 7. We can move on to chapter 8, which is page 51. And that vocabulary word for chapter 8 is calamitous, which is another adjective, which means disastrous, catastrophic, or really, really bad. Despite her preparation, the whole attempt felt calamitous. Okay, the Wimples brushed themselves off and walked through the crowded parking lot toward the hall. When they entered the lobby, there were even more people, and they were everywhere. India's heart flipped, and she thought she was going to faint, which of course made her worry even more. If she collapsed on the floor, she'd embarrass herself before she'd even stepped on stage. Her toe caught the edge of the carpet, and she stumbled through the door. Dad caught her before she fell. "I've got you." Mom grabbed on her other arm. "Me too." After registering with the spelling bee officials, India was given a large numbered card to hang around her neck, and the Wimples were directed inside a bustling auditorium. Film crews adjusted lights and interviewed feverish contestants. India hid behind her family and made herself as small as possible, so none of the cameras would point her way. On stage, 2 officials sat at a table. One was a slumped over bald man with a mustache that sat over his lip like a fluffy caterpillar. Beside him was a woman wearing a black skirt, a jacket with tall black boots, and a scowl that was just as dark. Her hair was pulled back into a tight, orderly bun. She tapped a sharp fingernail against her microphone to quiet the audience. It didn't work. "Ladies and gentlemen," she had a clipped way of speaking that reminded India of whips being cracked. The audience kept fussing. Some became even rowdier. She frowned, took a deep breath, and bellowed, "Will you all be quiet?" The audience froze in an immediate hush. That's better. She eyed the crowd as if daring them to make a sound. "I am Miss Hatchet, the pronouncer for today's round, and my colleague, Mr. Spratt, will keep the time and score." She pointed at the rows of chairs on stage. "Contestants, you must now go to your allocated seats, and all the family members will sit down there." She pointed into the hall as if she were shooing a grubby child from the room. It was hard to tell whether India or Dad was more nervous. "We can't sit together?" Dad looked as if he wasn't going to move until Mom took his arm. "Not if we don't want to upset Mrs. Hatchet." She kissed India on the forehead. "Good luck and remember to smile." India tried once again, but it came out all wrong, like she was about to be horribly sick. "Wait, I almost forgot." Nana Flo pulled a hanky from inside her sleeve. "I wanted to give you this." "Thanks, Nana, but I already have a hanky." "This is no ordinary hanky. It's the Wimple family's lucky hanky. My mother gave it to my father before he went to the war, and he said it was the reason he returned home in one piece." "Do you think that's true?" India asked. "Father believed it, and I think he would enjoy that it's coming in handy again." "Thanks, Nana." India tucked the hanky into her pocket. Nana Flo patted Ernie's head. "Ernie thinks you're going to be fine too." "Good luck hug?" Boo asked. "Yes, please." "You'll be great, sis," he whispered. "I know it." India climbed the stairs onto the stage, concentrating the whole time on not tripping. When she took her seat behind the other kids, she kept her head down, trying not to make eye contact, worried that someone might turn around at any moment and say hello. Her stomach fluttered just thinking about it. "Children and parents," Mrs. Hatchet barked, "welcome to the first round of the stupendously spectacular spelling bee." Even though she'd said welcome, it sounded anything but welcoming. Today, thousands of children all around the country are battling for their place in the grand final. These are knockout rounds. Each child who spells a word incorrectly will be eliminated. India shuddered at the way Mrs. Hatchet seemed to enjoy saying eliminated. The last contestant to spell a word correctly will proceed to round 2. Let's begin. India suddenly felt hot, as if someone had turned up the heat. Her mouth became dry. She wondered how long a dehydrated body could survive before it simply collapsed. She didn't have long to think about it before Mrs. Hatchet called the first contestant, Harrison. The small, thin boy walked to the microphone at the front of the stage. His shorts and shirt were so big that India thought he must have dressed in someone else's clothes by mistake. Mrs. Hatchet pronounced the first word, devour. This is a verb which means to gobble, guzzle, or feast. She had a small, devouring smile. India spelled the word in her head. The boy took a deep breath and began. Devour. D-E-V-O-U-R. Devour. Everyone in the room held their breath until Mrs. Hatchet announced, without a trace of joy, "That is correct." Harry smiled with relief and hurried back to his seat. India watched as more kids were called, some tall, some short, some competent, and some who looked downright terrified. Then it was her turn. Her heart did another flip, a really big one this time, and it beat so wildly she worried it might be too much and just give up altogether. She looked at the microphone. It seemed an infinitely long way away. She carefully lifted each foot, trying desperately to ignore the fact that everyone in the room was staring directly at her. She attempted a smile, knowing it probably looked all wrong, when the voice inside her head came back. "This is crazy. This is ridiculous. Even thinking you can win is completely calamitous." India looked up, worried that Ms. Hatchet had read her thoughts. "This is an adjective meaning devastating, catastrophic." The pronouncer paused and gave India a steely glare, or very, very disastrous. India gulped. She knew this one by heart. She was sure of it. She just had to stay calm. But then it happened. The same feeling she'd had during the school play. She felt frozen to the stage, and her body trembled with waves of fear. The words she practiced, every word she knew, began to disappear from her memory, like fireworks fizzing out to nothing, leaving behind a black, empty space. Mr. Spratt rang a small bell. 30 seconds remaining. India panicked. She tried to open her mouth, but her teeth clamped shut. Her breathing grew short. She felt dizzy. I knew this would happen, the voice said. It is calamitous, just like the time when you... India looked up to drive the voice away and to search for the quickest way out of the auditorium. But then she saw the Wimples sitting in a row, smiling at her, and all wearing animal beanies. Almost instantly, the room stopped spinning, and the words slowly began to reappear. She wrote it on her palm just to be sure. She checked and double-checked. 10 seconds, Mr. Spratt warned. India took a deep breath. Calamitous. C-A-L-A-M-I-T-O-U-S. Calamitous. Ms. Hatchett leaned into her microphone. A small, downturned crease in her lip seemed to suggest she was disappointed. That is correct. The Wimples leaped from their seats and let out cheers and hoots. The people around them stared. Ms. Hatchett was not impressed. The audience will refrain from noisy outbursts. Dad waved a small, apologetic wave, and they all sat down. I did it, India kept thinking all the way back to her seat. I did it. More kids made their way to the microphone, and more words were called. Hesitant, introverted, acquiescent. India's next attempt went more smoothly. Ingenious, Ms. Hatchett announced. This is an adjective meaning resourceful, intelligent, or talented. India thought back to Mom's stories of ingenious India, and this time her smile came with almost no effort at all. Ingenious. I-N-G-E-N-I-O-U-S. Ingenious. That is correct. More spellers came and went. Many were asked to leave the stage after they misspelled their word. Some went quietly, shaking their heads. Others fled in an outburst of tears. The chairs around India emptied until there was only herself and Harry Harrison left. Harry was up first. Precipice, Ms. Hatchett said. This is a noun meaning a cliff face. This is a noun meaning a cliff face or sheer drop. Harry moved to the microphone. Precipice. P-R-E. He stopped. India snuck a look at Harry. Until this moment, he'd spelled everything without hesitation. C-I. He took a hanky from his pocket and wiped his brow. India spelled the rest of the word in her head, willing him to hear her. P-A-C-E. Precipice? India felt her heart plunge. This was always the worst part of watching the spelling bee, the moment when she knew a kid's hopes were about to be dashed. Ms. Hatchett spoke carefully. That is incorrect. There were sighs and murmurs of disappointment from the audience. The word is spelled P-R-E-C-I-P-I-C-E. If India's next attempt is correct, she will be the winner of today's heat and will advance to the second round in Huddersfield. The room fell silent as India stepped to the microphone. India, your word is iridescent. This is an adjective meaning having luminous colors that change when seen from different angles. India felt her legs tingle. She wrote it on her hand to double check. She was positive that she knew how to spell it. Are you really positive? The voice asked. If you get this wrong, you're out for sure. She looked up again, eager to ignore the voice. Mom gave one of her biggest, warmest smiles. Iridescent. I-R-I-D-E-S-C-E-N-T. Iridescent. That is correct, Miss Hatchett said flatly. You are going through to the next round. This time nothing was going to stop the Wimples, not even Miss Hatchett's brutal stare. They jumped from their seats, whooping and cheering. Nana Flo put her fingers between her teeth and let out a whistle that echoed around the hall. India turned to Harry. You were really good. Thanks, he said. I hope you make it to the finals. Kids from the country never win, but I figure you could. Dad couldn't help himself. He sprinted down the center of the auditorium, jumped on stage, and swept India into the air. Ms. Hatchett attempted to stop him. Mr. Wimple, this is hardly an appropriate way to, but she gave up, knowing there was no point once all the other Wimples joined in. India felt lighthearted in Dad's arms, but wasn't sure if it was the spinning or the simple fact of what had just happened. She had done it. She was going through to the next round, and the voice inside her head was completely silent. Okay, everybody, thanks.